in sport, the biggest hurdle is inertia. So the first thing that you want to do is overcome that inertia for going out and doing something.
Our guest today, as we'll discover, is not only one of, if not the very best arthroscopic knee surgeon in India and a pioneer in this field, but also an active cyclist himself, who at the age of 70 is still travelling the globe in search of the ultimate cycling adventure.
I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is doing with the right equipment, so there are no shortcuts when it comes to equipment, the right gear, the right form for that particular sport, putting in the right kind of effort so that I'm fit for that sport. So there are no shortcuts.
Feel the beat. We are rising high. Legends don't stop till they reach the sky.
No shortcuts.
It's about the work. No easy wins. Just a focused mind.
No shortcuts.
The journey runs deep.
No shortcuts.
Now let them rise.
Dr. Anant Joshi, could you please share with us a brief explanation of what arthroscopic surgery is and how long you've been doing this?
Nigel, for people who are really non-medical people, keyhole surgery is what they are exposed to. They know everything about laparoscopic surgery, and arthroscopic surgery is keyhole surgery of joints. So when I joined medical school, surgery of joints was actually very invasive. They had to open joints to look inside the joint. Very often the diagnosis used to be wrong, and the patients used to be more miserable with treatment than without treatment. Then in the early 80s, keyhole surgery of joints came in, and I was extremely fortunate to be in the United States at that time, and I got to learn arthroscopic surgery, which I started doing in 1984 in India. And it started off with the knee, and then we slowly went on to other joints as well. So we started off with arthroscopy of the shoulder, the ankle, the elbow, the wrist. And today you have not only just a basic arthroscopist, you have arthroscopist in every joint that you can name. So it is really a specialty which has developed over years, and today we have super specialists in this specialty of arthroscopy.
And so what sort of procedures would you be carrying out in terms of the injury that someone that comes to you might have been exposed to?
So in majority of patients, the arthroscopic surgery has helped prolong their athletic careers. And we see this happening more in people who are into contact sports like football, kabaddi, kho-kho, gymnastics. And very often when they land awkwardly or they get into collision, they tear their ligaments. And previously, before arthroscopy came in, actually once you had a ligament tear, that was the beginning of the end of the profession or your sport. Arthroscopy actually allowed us to not only look inside the joint and come to a proper diagnosis, but we realized that what we were thinking of the meniscus as the cause, we realized that it was the ligament which was the cause of problems in athletes. And today, a number of athletes, their careers have been prolonged because of keyhole ligament reconstruction. The commonest being the anterior cruciate ligament.
The ACL.
The ACL.
And I guess for people that follow football, for example, an ACL tear is quite a common injury.
Absolutely. So today with increasing professionalism in kabaddi, kho-kho, you find that you have leagues in every sport, just like cricket. And so a lot of these, even wrestling, a lot of these athletes who initially were not able to get access to hospitals and to high-end care, today can easily approach us and get treated for their ligament injuries. So in India, I would say besides football, we have a lot of Indian sports, And these athletes form a major bulk of our patient population.
So I'd been in India about 3 years, and obviously we were already friends and riding together when I came to see you and complaining of a particular pain in my right knee, and I became one of your patients. So what exactly did you do to me to enable me to keep riding?
So, Nigel, as you realize, all of us who are into sports basically overuse and abuse our joints. And over a period of time, the tissues give up. And the commonest thing that happens when you have a problem without really an injury, like a real fall, it is usually the meniscus and the lining of the joint which gets worn out. In fact, I had my arthroscopic surgery way back in 1989 for my meniscus tear. And that is precisely what you had. You had a torn meniscus which we cleaned up. And as you realize, it's a daycare procedure. You walk out in 2 hours and you possibly were able to start training in probably a week after the surgery.
Yeah.
So
something like that, yeah. And so obviously you're a very keen cyclist now, but what sports were you into growing up and before you found the bicycle?
So I have basically been an outdoor guy. I was never in the classroom most of the times, right from my school to even my medical college days. And I started off being quite proficient in badminton. That was my first love. And I played for the Bombay University, captained the Bombay University team, played for Maharashtra in the juniors. And that was that continued till almost the end of my medical career, that means the MBBS. Unfortunately, although having put in a lot of effort in badminton and captaining the Bombay University team, when we went for a tournament where the All India team was being selected, I was dropped despite winning my matches. And the reason given was that I was too old. And although my opponents were wearing kneecaps in both knees, they felt that I was old because... So I had a fight with the selectors at that time and I vowed to give up badminton. So that was the end of my badminton career at the end of my MBBS. So I continued playing badminton till then. And then I shifted to tennis. And I played quite at a good level. In the US, I played at the 3.5 level, which is a good level at the club level. But when I came back to India, I realized that the courts in India had slowly undergone a change. From the cow dung courts and the clay courts, we had gone to synthetic surfaces. And that is where my knee started playing up. And once that happened, I realized that I needed my knees for my surgical profession and not for tennis. So I slowly went on to cycling, which was a completely no impact sport. And I have been able to cycle from then on.
And do you find, from a cardiovascular point of view, any differences between, for example, racket sports and cycling?
There is a huge difference. I think in a sport like badminton or tennis, you have really short bursts of intense activity and then a little bit of a break. And that is mainly an anaerobic, aerobic, anaerobic, aerobic. So there's a lot of variation. Whereas in cycling, if you just want to stay at the aerobic level and you want to do consistent, good cadence workout, you can still do it in cycling. So there are no jerks, there are no jumps, there is no change of direction, which is a big difference from any of the racket sports. So I think cycling is definitely friendly, easy on your knees. And I keep on telling my patients that cycle chalao, ghutna bachao. That means ride the cycle and save your knees.
Yes. And can you remember your first bike post badminton?
So actually I must say that I got into cycling accidentally. And it is only because of Mustafa that I went into cycling. Now, who is this Mustafa? Mustafa was my patient. He worked for Mercedes-Benz in Kuwait. And he happened to come to Mumbai ready to undergo surgery on his knee. And when I examined him, I felt that he did not need surgery, and I put him on physiotherapy, and he became completely all right. And Mustafa was ever so grateful that a surgeon had not operated on him and instead given him the right advice to go without surgery. So every time Mustafa visited India, he would come and give me a souvenir, a Mercedes-Benz cap, a Mercedes-Benz t-shirt. But Mustafa, being a salesman for Mercedes, wanted me to really upgrade my vehicle from a Honda CR-V, I think I had, to a Mercedes. So he kept on kind of trying to sell me a Mercedes. And somehow I was not keen at all, because I'm not really, I'm still not very keen on being flashy. I think Mustafa felt that probably I did not have enough money for the Mercedes. So during one of his visits, he gifted me a Mercedes-Benz cycle. And that was something really special. That time, I think only Anil Kapoor or Salman Khan had a Mercedes-Benz cycle, and I was the second guy to have a Mercedes-Benz. And so that was that caught the attention of many people. Whenever I cycled out, they used to look at my Mercedes-Benz, and they used to be shocked at seeing a Mercedes-Benz cycle. So that was my foray into cycling. And I started off going to my commuting to work on my cycle. In fact, all hospitals, they started recognizing me only because I was the only doctor coming to the hospital on a cycle, whether it be a Breach Candy hospital or a small clinic. So I started getting recognition as a doctor who cannot afford a car and who comes on a cycle.
So we're conducting this chat in the SportsMed gym, and SportsMed is your clinic, and this is predominantly for 5 or 6 days a week a rehab and physiotherapy centre. It also has at least 2 of your previous bikes, which we have mounted on Wahoo trainers, which we use for cycle training. So obviously at some point you switched up to a Scott Addict.
Oh yeah. The Scott Addict has been my first bicycle. I think this was in 2019 when I really took to serious cycling. And that also happened by chance. One of the physiotherapists who goes with the Tour of the Nilgiris, the TFN, said, he saw me commuting to work on the cycle and said, why don't you enroll for the TFN? And so I discussed with Aditya Daftari, our radiologist, and Abhay Nene, our spine specialist, and all of them agreed. They said, if you are going, then we don't want you to go alone, we'll join you. So we formed this motley group of cyclists. Jaideep Khanna from Barclays Bank, Abhay Nene, Aditya and myself, and we had a physiotherapist, Vallabhji. So we all decided to enroll for the TFN, not knowing at all what we were getting into. We thought that it was a fun ride in the city of Bangalore or Mysore. And then we realized that the TFN is a grueling kind of event, about 800 or 900 kilometers. And then we started looking at the net, and we saw this blog where one guy had written that when you climb up the Kalahati Ghat, it's like climbing up a wall and it cannot be graded. So we realized that we need to train for something like the TFN. So that is how I got into the Addict. That was my first road bike, and you see it's still here and it's still in pristine condition. And so that was the Addict I took to. We started training on the Bhor going to Bhor and training. And finally, we completed the TFN. And I was at that time the oldest guy in the group. So I got the award for the most inspiring cyclist in 2019. I was 60 then. And actually that gave me a boost, and I realized that you can see much more when you cycle on the streets. You can really enjoy the local cuisine, the local culture. You can appreciate the local culture, and so that is how the journey started.
And so obviously since that original, your first visit to TFN, you've had plenty of other adventures globally on the bicycle.
Absolutely, I've been enjoying.
Can you tell us about some of those trips?
So I think one of the trips which I think which was an epic ride for me was the ride from John O'Groats from Land's End. So I think that was about a 1,000 mile jog, what they call, and it's, I think, a dream on the wish list of many of the cyclists to do the jog. So this was close to a 1,000 mile ride over 14 days. I'm told some people do it in less than a week, but I think 14 days was good enough for me. And that was a fantastic ride. I think it was one of the best rides, cycling through the countryside of England and then going to the mountains in Scotland. And it was a ride which is absolutely memorable. But since then, I think I have been looking at least 2 rides in a year, which take me to about 500k distance. And of course, I find that your training has been extremely useful because I think realize that unless you train yourself for these kind of epic adventures, you may not be able to enjoy so you will be struggling with injuries and so on. So I think training has become a critical part, which I realize helps you in your training, your cycling journey.
Absolutely. And one of my mantras is, you sweat a lot in training so that you can smile a lot on holiday.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're riding. And, I know that we've also been on a shared trip to the Himalayas as well. So how high did you go?
So the riding in Ladakh actually is an addiction. And I have been 3 times. The first time we did from Manali to Leh, that was in 2015, I think. 2014 was TFN, 2015 was Ladakh, Manali to Leh. And that was again an epic ride, and that got me hooked on to riding at high altitudes. And finally, I managed to do the ride from Leh to Khardungla, which is that time was the world's highest motorable road, and that I felt was a good culmination of that trip, being able to cycle all the way from Leh to Khardungla.
Absolutely. And what year was that trip?
That was, I think, in 2017.
So you were well into your 60s at that point.
Absolutely. I was in the mid 60s, 65.
And riding beyond 5,300 meters.
Yeah, 18,000 feet, yeah.
So if ever there was an advert for, what cycling can do and where to look for inspiration, then obviously you're a very good starting point.
No, I think inspiration for me comes a lot from the Westerners whom I see and interact with when I cycle overseas. So I have cycled in Italy, gone to the Dolomites, the Lurjog, of course. And during Lurjog, I was 60, but the Peter was 75, and he said, "Anant, I'll look after you, don't worry." So, these are inspirational for me. These people who are at 75 and 80 are still fit and strong, and I feel that I am nothing at 70. I need to be something like them at 80. So that is what keeps on motivating me.
If you've listened this far, we're guessing you're having a good time. Why not make it a regular thing? Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel or listen on to the No Shortcuts podcast on the EP Log Media app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. This way, you'll always be first to know when new content drops. And what's the next trip or the cycling calendar for 2025?
2025, I bring in my 70th birthday with a cycling trip in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka happens to be my favorite destination closest to home for cycling. Yeah. It has beautiful roads, clean villages, clean streets, excellent food, and nice people. So just a 2-hour flight from here and you are in Sri Lanka. And I have cycled, I think 5 times in Sri Lanka, cycled all across Sri Lanka. And so Jan starts off with cycling in Sri Lanka. Then this year I either want to do Trans Italy or Trans France, and that is the goal. So at least 2 trips in the 2025.
And in terms of preparing for those sorts of trips, obviously you kind of alluded to the fact that I try and provide a little bit of coaching for you. But what does a typical week's riding look like for you?
So I leave my training plan to you, and I do more or less whatever you advise me. Because I am still not retired, so I have to balance my work, my surgeries with my cycling. But I try and do at least 4 days a week of cycling. 1 day with you, intense training, which is a torture session for me. And then the other days, as per your advice, go easy, work on cadence. And then if some of the trips involve a lot of cycling, then obviously go to Borghat, which is the closest that you can go to build up your leg muscles and get used to cycling on the inclines.
Yep.
So 4 days a week would be cycling. I think as you age, you have what is called sarcopenia. That means you lose your muscle mass. So it's very important that we do some form of weight training. So I try to do it about thrice in a week on machines, so I don't harm myself. And light weights, basically more repetitions, so to just maintain my muscle tone. I concentrate more on the upper body because most of the lower body workout happens through cycling. And then for the upper body, because as you know, when you're on the bike, you need good strong shoulders, you need a good upper back, lower back. So I think my training is more towards upper back, the upper body strength. And as you age, you also realize that you become very stiff in your joints. So I have now added yoga to my training schedule. So twice a week of yoga to just open up your joints, stretch out your muscles so basically I want to be injury free.
Yes.
And that is when you enjoy the sport that you're in.
So going back to the indoor sessions that I kind of lead you through on a Wednesday evening, and you talked about retaining muscle mass. That's why we always include a little bit of everything in an indoor session. So we're just kind of tickling those neuromuscular pathways that you wouldn't normally use outdoors. And for our listeners, that means, sort of high speed, sprinting type, fast twitch muscles. But also we do a little bit of very low cadence but high resistance, which I call muscular workouts on the bike or weight training on the bike. Again, just to engage that kind of big muscle mass and get that firing, so that hopefully you come away from those sessions, having explored all the different kind of muscular energy systems, so that then, as you said, the rest of the week you can just go out, ride easy, keep the cadence high, and just keep the cardiovascular system ticking over.
Yeah, actually, I was extremely skeptical about indoor cycling. I never felt that, it can replicate what is outdoors. But when I started training with you, I realized that it helped me a great deal and my performance really shot up. I was struggling at 18 kilometers per hour and suddenly I found that I could do 22 and 24. And this was only after I came into touch with you and started doing training on the Wahoo. And the good part about training with you, having personalized training, which I felt was most beneficial, was that you realized that the days that I was tired because of my professional work, you would taper down the high resistance workout and give me a high cadence workout, which was not really demanding on my muscles.
Yep.
And which was more relaxing. And on the days that you felt that I was fresh because my pulse was not shooting up or my recovery was good, we did high intensity workouts. So I think that workout, mix and match of different workouts, I think helps you tremendously.
And I think that's a really good example to any kind of cyclist that's training for a longer adventure. You know, you might have a schedule and it might say hard day is Tuesday, but if you've been at work all day Tuesday and you reach the evening and you feel shattered, don't do the hard session. Absolutely. Have a good night's sleep. Do it the next day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to make you more tired.
Absolutely.
And then the rest of the week just gets worse and worse. In fact, you still, I know you live very close to the clinic here, but you still, as you mentioned earlier, commute to work. And obviously you're shifting from bike to bike, depending on whether you're training or commuting, etc. How important is a bike fit?
I think
both, from your point of view and from a medical point of view.
So, I think initially when we used to buy bikes, we were just buying a bike depending on the frame size. There was nothing else we looked at. And luckily for me, I have been extremely lucky that with a size 54 Addict, and because the Addict has better shock absorption than the foil, I never landed up with any problems. I have had 2 back surgeries, 3 knee surgeries, 1 neck surgery, and so I have to be careful about the bike that I use. I used the Aero, the foil, for some time, but I immediately went back to my Addict because I found that the Addict was extremely comfortable. Now, then the bike fit thing also started kicking in. When professionals like you came in, that is when we realized that bike fit is extremely important. And as you know, all my bikes, we have been working on the saddle height, the reach, so that you reduce your stem a little bit and you suddenly find that your reach is better, you're not crouching, your low back is at ease. So I think bike fit not only prevents injuries, but also increases your efficiency for cycling. So both ways, you're not tired. If you have the right bike, you're not tired while cycling. You can go long distances.
And it's extremely important for things like the jog that you did, in being able to ride 100 kilometers a day or 100 plus a day for
100 miles a day. Yeah. And you did feel tired at the end of it. So you could continue cycling 100 miles almost every day.
And what would you say are the common injuries that you would see in cyclists that haven't had a bike fit from your experience?
Luckily for me, I have not had a single injury because I have always invested in the right bikes. I have not, in fact, I spend more on my bicycles than my car. And I have changed my cycles more often than my cars. My car is 10 years old. But my cycles, I change whenever I feel that I need something new. So it's not that the bicycle has gone, but I need just a change. And I think cycling with the right bike has helped me prevent injuries. The injuries that I see very often are 2 types. One is when people are not attentive while cycling and they cycle, they fall. We have seen all of us fall with cleats on. We have not disengaged the cleats. You get distracted with your mobile phones, with music, and no awareness while you're cycling. And I think that is the key to prevent injuries, especially cycling on city streets like Mumbai. I think awareness is the key when you're cycling. You should be aware of what is happening around you, not only what is awareness of your own body as to what is happening to your body, but also everything around you. And that helps prevention of injuries. I see a lot of people exercising, but completely distracted. They are not paying attention to how their legs are moving, what is the position of your back. And as you keep on telling us, relax your shoulders, relax your neck. So I think that awareness is what is required to prevent all kinds of injuries when you cycle.
And would you say, compared to, let's say, any sport where your feet would be on the ground and not on pedals, that in that respect, all the time your feet are on pedals, you're much less likely to injure your knees?
Absolutely. As far as the knees are concerned, cycling is a savior. And there are so many people who have been, kind of looking at my lifestyle and seeing me cycling, have taken to cycling. And they always tell me that it is because of you that we took to cycling. And their knees are saved. They did not need surgery. They had been advised surgery, undergo joint replacement, and just by taking to cycling, they have avoided joint replacement for years and years. So I think cycling is an excellent kind of therapy for people with knee problems.
And also, I guess you've seen it here as well with sportsmen recovering and doing rehab using cycling.
A lot of endurance runners have come to us after finishing some ultra endurance events like the Comrades. They come hobbling to us, and when we do their MRIs, we find that there is severe swelling in the bone. And I have treated quite a few of them, telling them to completely lay off running and go to cycling. And one of them actually went on to cycling for almost a year and then came back to run the Comrades. So in cycling, what happens is your knees are constantly moving. So I think the joint lubrication is better, but without any impact, which happens during running. So I think it is good for healthy joints, healthy knees.
And I think I've read a couple of articles that certainly in the pro peloton, where perhaps a professional cyclist could be riding for anywhere between 20 and 30 hours, osteoporosis is they're at a higher risk of getting that simply because they're not walking about supporting their own body weight. So what can cyclists that are perhaps worried about that sort of ailment, what can they do?
For any sport that you're in, you need to have a balanced training. It cannot be just one sport that you're in, because you are working on the same muscle group, the same joints time and time again. So it's very important that anybody who is in a particular sport does some form of cross training. And that cross training is extremely useful because it relieves pressure on the joints that you are abusing day in and day out. So I think for a runner, cycling is an excellent form of cross training. And I also tell them to swim if they have access to a pool, because cycling, swimming, running, walking are sports which you can easily do. And the same thing happens to... So if you are in a job which involves constant standing, or in a sport which requires constant running and high impact, I always tell them that offload your joints by doing something like cycling and swimming.
And what would your advice be to, let's say, the younger generation, maybe young teenagers that are still exploring different sports, not necessarily as a profession, but as a hobby and as a way of leading a healthy lifestyle? I mean, obviously I know that Mumbai has severe limitations in being able to get outside. But how would you encourage a youngster to get on a bicycle?
Not necessarily get onto a bicycle, but I feel that sports should be an integral part of your life. And life is incomplete without being into sports or exercise. For me, sports is an integral part. And it's just like, even when I was in my final MBBS, which is a tough medical course, I was still finding time for the gym and tennis and so on. So having no time is the best excuse that people give for not exercising.
Mm-hmm.
But very often people realize very late in life the need for exercising and good health. And without exercise and sport, I think your health really matters. And that is why you see so many youngsters having hypertension, diseases like diabetes. In fact, young people undergoing coronary bypasses. And that is because they have not paid attention to their lifestyles. And one of the integral part or important parts of your lifestyle is sport.
And also, as we've spoken about previously in the past, stretching off the bike. Just, make it part of your routine so that 2 or 3 times a week in the morning, you just need to spend 15, 20 minutes stretching.
So most of the sports, whether it is running, cycling, football, or even weight training in the gym, it shortens your muscles and it makes them less supple. They make them rigid. And that makes you prone to injuries. So a lot of times when you get a pulled muscle, a torn muscle, a sprain, it's all because your muscles are not supple and your joints are stiff. So one of the key factors in fitness, which is often overlooked by even the professional athletes, is flexibility. And I see a lot of people coming to me with knee pain, thinking that medicines is going to cure their problem, and all I tell them is that you work on your flexibility, your knee pain will disappear, or your shoulder pain will disappear, or your backache will disappear. And I think flexibility is the key. And I feel that yoga is one thing which really is neglected. People feel that yoga means just lying down and sleeping or doing some shavasana. But yoga is much more. What it does is it stretches out your muscles in a controlled fashion, not in an uncontrolled dynamic fashion. So you don't land up with injuries when you're doing yoga.
So with all of this in mind, and obviously we've talked a little bit about where you've ridden in the past. So I know you've ridden in Australia, Sri Lanka, the UK, Italy, Spain. You're looking to go and do Trans-France.
Yes.
What's the one single best day you've had on the bike?
I think the finish of Le Jog. Because we had already cycled some 900 miles or something, the last 100 miles, and finishing that thing was epic. You felt that you have accomplished something, that you had cycled all the way from the southern tip of UK to the northern tip, and that was accomplishment. Obviously
you keep exploring, and you've talked about going, perhaps doing Trans-France or Trans-Italy. What else is on the bucket list?
Trans-America.
Wow, okay.
And that would be, I think I need to take 4 weeks off my work. So I'm looking on ways on how to reduce my work. That would give me an opportunity to do Trans-America. I think that is on my bucket list.
Because I just had in my mind, I just thought, I'll do California north to south. But no. I didn't even consider going across the whole country.
Maybe I'll take you along.
And will you be coming to Ladakh with us in August? I know that our mutual friend Jayesh is already putting together another trip.
Yeah, I think one thing which is still on my bucket list is the world's most highest motorable road. I did Khardungla, but then that hasn't worked out because they built one road higher. So now Umlingla seems to be the next thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully in my 70th year, I'll try and climb Umlingla.
Yeah, we've got Umlingla on the agenda.
And maybe by the 80th, they'll have one road higher. So we'll go to that road.
Maybe by the time you're 90, you'll be cycling on the moon or somewhere. So as you're aware, the name of this podcast is No Shortcuts. And what does that phrase mean to you, both professionally and from a cycling point of view?
So anything that you get involved in, I think you need to make sure that you do it to perfection, to whatever possible. So when I'm cycling, I don't want to be seen as a novice or somebody who is pedaling in a wrong fashion, or I don't have form while I'm cycling. So I want to look like a cyclist, although I may not look like one.
You do.
But I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is doing with the right equipment. So there are no shortcuts when it comes to equipment, the right gear, the right form for that particular sport, putting in the right kind of effort so that I'm fit for that sport.
Yeah.
So there are no shortcuts. And in sport, the biggest hurdle is inertia. So the first thing that you want to do is overcome that inertia for going out and doing something. So that is one thing which I am constantly worried about, that I should not get into this trap of, giving up something or putting it to some other day. So there is nothing like I'll do it tomorrow. So if I can do it today, I must do it today, and if not, if possible, do it now. So I have consistency is the key, and discipline. So very often you find people saying that I ride once a week, but then that is mainly because there is no discipline and consistency. So the night before I go to bed, I'll put up my Garmin, my Polar watch, my shoes, my helmet, everything is ready. So I have no excuses and my kit.
Yeah, if I have an indoor session planned for the following day, then my indoor Wahoo, I put the ironing board in front of the bike. And then on top of the ironing board, I have all of my kit, my hydration, my towel, my heart rate monitor, the Garmin's charged, the bike is on the Wahoo. So I literally just have to walk into the room, get changed, start pedaling. I think the easiest thing we can do is not to try. But the most rewarding thing we can do is try. As I say to you during a lot of our sessions, there is no such thing as failure, because we're always learning. Because having attempted something, and even if in your mind you think you failed, well, you haven't, because you've done something, you've tried. And to try is to succeed.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's conversation and on your perspective on living a no shortcuts lifestyle. Please share your comments below. A big shout out to our friends at EP Log Media for producing this episode. We've got plenty more inspiring conversations in the pipeline, so please stay tuned.